UK Wine Show, show number 853. The latest in training methods with Dr Paul Epee. Hi, my name's Chris Scott.
And I'm Jane Scott.
And together we founded 3050, the podcast that's about to celebrate 20 years coming up in the next couple of months.
Yep, we've been going since 2006.
Bit going on there, but also what's going on this week is we're back talking with Dr Paul Epee. He works for Bragato in Marlborough, and we interviewed him a while ago about UV lights. Well, he's working on his current project looking at different training methods for Sauvignon Blanc. New Zealand's led the way with training and trellising methods because Sauvignon Blanc is a monster of a grape variety and it grows on valley floors where it gets lots of nutrients. So managing that is a really, really important part of the New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc story. So we're going to be finding out what trials are all about. This week I've been running a few tastings and doing a few things. I ran a day 3 of a level 3 wine course. On Friday I ran a wine tasting online, part of our online tastings we have regularly. I don't normally run them, but I was down to run it and had a really nice time, quite enjoyed myself. And we have been out and about looking at Argentinian wines, Jane.
That's right, we went to the Argentina Embassy in London, and there we had a masterclass with 8 wines from Argentina. 7 of them were red, weren't they?
Malbecs.
Quite a lot of Malbec there, and then there was a Chardonnay at the end. But lovely presentation from Maria Laura Ortiz Chiavetta. And it was organised by the Association of Wine Educators. They're a UK group, and they do lots of tastings that you can attend as well, quite a lot in London, but also online.
Okay, and it's quite good. I enjoyed myself. I still would struggle after that to blindly spot Malbecs. I really have a hole spotting Malbecs.
There isn't really a single defining feature, it seems, for Malbec, is there? They were quite varied, weren't they?
They were very varied. I mean,
Yeah.
they were going all the way from Salta, which is, I think it was at 2,500 metres, and all of them almost down to sea level, some of them. Okay, Jane, let's get this week's Patreon flashcard question. And the Patreon questions this week were, one was on Northern Rhone, the level 3, and then level 4 was on the Loire. I did almost go off into our Lambrusco flashcards from level 4 and pick one from there, but I thought, oh no.
We'll save that for next week, Chris.
Might save that for next week. Okay, so what is this week's Patreon flashcard question?
The question is, what is the name for the cold north wind that blows through the Northern Rhone?
Got any ideas there, love?
I'm smiling this week, Chris. I think I know this one.
I know, it sounds hard, but for you, you're a little francophile.
Yeah, I love France. I think I know this.
Okay, well, we'll get the answer to that at the end of the show. But next up, we've got the news.
Well, first up this week, US wine sales are still declining, but the pace is slowing as shoppers tighten budgets. The US wine market remains around 6% down on last year, yet the sharper monthly drops seen earlier have eased, suggesting a more stable baseline. Consumers are still buying wine, but with greater caution, prioritising value, promotions and trusted brands. And for many drinkers, the price rises mean fewer purchases and more deliberate spending. Significantly, French wine exports to the US have fallen sharply, hit by tariffs that have made European bottles significantly more expensive. This has disrupted one of France's most important markets and contributed to wider softness in international trade. But over in Canada, the shift may be longer lasting. The removal of American wines from provincial shelves has accelerated a move towards domestic and alternative imports, with new buying habits becoming embedded.
I think that last comment about Canada is one that if I was a US wine producer, I'd be concerned about, because that move away from US wine has been going for almost a year now, and they've replaced a lot of the wines and spirits and beers from all over the world. So once they're embedded, getting them out again and getting US products back in there will be hard work. Okay, Jane, what's next?
Well, France will uproot 28,000 hectares of vines under a €130 million state-backed scheme to tackle falling demand, climate pressure and declining red wine sales, as thousands of growers seek support to reshape or exit the sector. Around 5,800 vineyard owners have applied to remove vines, with most requests coming from southwestern regions and focused on red grape varieties. Of the approved areas, 37% will be cleared entirely, while 63% will see partial removals, allowing growers to adapt production to shifting demand. The government will pay €4,000 per hectare to the producer, with work due by the end of 2026. The plan follows earlier support measures and wider EU reforms aimed at stabilising the wine sector. As we've been reporting recently, producers are facing mounting challenges, including changing drinking habits, weaker global sales, and climate impacts. While some see the scheme as necessary, others warn it may be a short-term fix, as questions remain over land use and the long-term future of France's wine industry.
One thing that I struggle with is the deposit return scheme, the DRS. They've finally settled on how much it's going to be in the UK, but I'm not sure if it's a good idea.
Well, yes, this won't happen until next October. That's October 2027. But the UK deposit return scheme is going to launch then with a 20p deposit on plastic bottles and cans, aiming to boost recycling of PET, steel and aluminium packaging. Exchange for Change has set the level after wide consultation, choosing a mid-range option citing sustainability and proportionality based on international schemes. Glass is excluded from the scheme for now, which will ease pressure on retailers, while industry groups welcome the move and said the 20p deposit will encourage returns and reduce waste. Retailers report that preparations continue, with grants and handling fees expected to support the rollout across stores nationwide next year.
In Queensland, Australia, they have a DRS system that includes glass. In fact, in most countries, glass is normally part of the DRS scheme. It's only here in the UK it's considered a bit too hard. Either way, my sister, when we were there, she had a big bag. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. They were collecting them and they were getting their money back, weren't they?
They absolutely were. And in Australia, the DRS system is 10 cents for a can or a bottle. That's enough to encourage recycling. In Queensland, roughly the aluminium recycle rate is 80%, which is very good. In the UK at the moment, it's 70 to 80%, just based on curbside collection. So it's almost there without a deposit return scheme. And then the question I have to ask myself is, if our figures are almost as good as without a deposit return scheme, do we actually need one? How much higher will a DRS scheme improve things like aluminium cans if you're not including it? And remember, all the money that's given for bottles that aren't returned goes back to the government to run the scheme, but also as a tax. Okay, Jane, it's a Friday Lambrisco. Before we get into it, I'll tell you what the Lambrisco is. It's Paltrineri St. Agatha. Now, St. Agatha, or St. Agatha, if you like, is the patron saint of the town of Marlborough. And this wine takes its name from that.
Well, I'm excited to try this. Tell us a bit more about the wine, Chris.
Well, before we do that, let's have a look at what we've tasted. All right. The very first wine we had was from Majestic, and that was basically 100% Grasparossa. That was that sort of red, slightly sweet wines. One of the other wines we had was Paltrineri's Sorbara Solco, and strangely enough, that was 100% Salamino grapes, because Sorbara is also a place, not just a grape variety, which confused the heck out of me for a while. We've also tried the Paltrineri Pera, which is a blend of Sorbara and Salamino. Well, this one is 100% Sorbara. And 100% Sorbara is a little bit of an unusual mix because Sorbara itself isn't self-pollinating. So that means that to get a good fruit set, they actually have to plant every third row has to be a Salamino. Which means that your vineyards are like 2 rows Sorbara and 1 row Salamino. And so quite often Lambrisco is a blend of Sorbara and Salamino at a 2-to-1 ratio.
So roughly. They harvest the grapes at the same time then?
I don't know, but they make a blend usually. Okay. And it's unusual. And Paltrineri is a little bit unusual in that they make a 100% Sorbara and 100% Salamino that we saw earlier. So it gives you an idea. You know, they're trying different things as well. Right, so being 100% Sorbara is the lightest grape variety you're going to get. So this should be the lightest wine that we've seen so far.
And how much did it cost, Chris? And what's the alcohol level?
So it is 16 quid, basically, and 11% alcohol. So we're getting into the more pricey end of the wines we bought. So we've had, pretty entry stuff. But the difference between Majestic's Grasparosso, which is at 13 quid, and this wine, which is considered actually to be a fairly top-end wine.
Well, let's crack it open, Chris. Nice dull thud there.
That's what you want. You don't want too much psh, or you lose the booze. That's a disaster.
Well, it's pale again, Chris.
Yeah, no, well, it's the lightest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's another light one.
And so it's even lighter than the last super light rosé style that we had. It's almost, you would almost say it's absolutely not a Provence rosé, but
oh no, it's nowhere near that, Chris.
it's it's biodynamic, but it smells lovely.
It has really got a lovely bouquet, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's red fruits.
Floral at all, do you think?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, I think it's a Fazanti. It doesn't have that sort of, it's very soft bubblies, but I mean, there's a lot of bubbles there, but it's very delicate in the mouth.
Compared to last week, the flavours are staying with me. When I swallow the wine, last week I remember the taste just disappeared very quickly. Here, I think it's got a little bit more to it.
Mm. And there's a lot of that fresh acidity that you'd expect in a English or a champagne or one of those types of wines, as opposed to a... I know everybody says that Lambrusco is got lots of fresh acidity, but this is the first wine that it's been like, whoa, this is like an English or a champagne style of acidity levels. Nice. I like it. Do you like it?
I do like it. I did not know before we started off on this journey that there were any rosé Lambruscos.
It's not. It's still a red wine.
But how can you call that a red wine? It's so rosé.
I know.
Very pink Lambrusco, I would say, because the consumer just is expecting red wine when they open up Lambrusco. It is so known for being sparkling red.
Yeah.
So I really think... The bottle doesn't help it because it's a green bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I know we have got some in our fridge and they've got clear glass.
That's right. But I think they're the more natural ones where the wine isn't expected to keep for any length of time.
And maybe you can see some of the sediment as well.
Maybe. But also this wine is, as you can smell, there's no alcoholic flavours here. This is a tank method, Martinotti, or as the French call it, Charmat. It's all the same thing. And so you don't necessarily get a lot of any alcoholic notes at all. It's just nice, fresh, fruity, lingering acidity, lingering fruit on the mouth. Looks like a nice fresh rosé, really.
This is definitely a wine that we could take to friends and they would drink it.
I think so, yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, Chris.
Okay, next up we've got an interview. But before we get into the interview, let's get a little bit of an update. We're going to do a Patreon get-together.
That's right. We're scheduling it in for Wednesday, the 20th of May. And if you're interested in New Zealand, we're going to be taking you on a little tour of some of the regions we visited while we were over there and the producers that we spoke to. So do join us.
On Wednesday, the 20th of May. And we'll taste, because we always like to have a place. I think we better have a Lambrusco to taste. So, but we'll talk about New Zealand, but we'll taste a Lambrusco
Okay,
together.
we can do that.
Yep.
So I'll put a note up on the Patreon page with a link to join the call and all the timings, and hopefully see you there.
Cool. Okay. We'll give you a proper reminder next week at the top of the show. Next up, before we do the interview, obviously, is our Patreon flashcard question. And the question is, Jane.
What is the name of the cold north wind that blows through the northern Rhone?
All right, we'll give you the answer to that at the end of the show. But next up, we've got our interview. And I said at the top of the show, it's with Dr. Paul Epee. He's going to be telling us all about the training methods and what he's been researching in terms of training and trying to get the most out of Sauvignon Blanc in Marlborough's deep, rich valley floors. Let's have a listen to what he has to say. Hi, my name's Chris Scott and I'm here with Paul Epee. How are you, Paul?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
I'm very good. A box of fluffy ducks, as my dad would say. A box of fluffy ducks, although it is a little bit warm in here and we've had to turn the air conditioning off because we don't want the rumbling in the background. We've talked to you in the past about your work with UVC and how it's inconclusive yet whether that's appropriate for Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. But one thing that New Zealand has led the way for a long time, particularly in the 80s, was canopy management. And they came up with all sorts of wonderful systems like the Scott Henry and all sorts of weird and wonderful trellising systems. Mm-hmm. You've been looking at ways of designing different trellising systems. Can you just, before we get into that in more detail, do you want to tell us what the objective of a trellising system is?
vines are not like normal trees that grow upright and they grow their branches in a very defined way. Grapevines, especially cultivated grapevines, are vines, so they are creeping plants, which means they need some help to give them the shape that can allow them to grow properly. And now, the other thing is mechanization, because vineyards nowadays are mechanized. You want to form the shape, the structure of your vine so that it sits well within a row, allowing your machines to operate, whether a sprayer or a harvester, to optimize your management. That's the reason why you need to train a grapevine. And training here means to give it a shape, a form that allows you to manage it efficiently and properly. Now, training also play a part in your fruit. You want your fruit to be exposed to sunlight because light actually allows your grape to develop those aromas that consumers actually prefer and they are excited about. And to allow that to happen, you need to structure, to frame your grapevine in a certain way. So training plays a part in bringing all those factors together to allow you not only to optimize your management, but also to produce quality grapes.
And training has changed a lot. If you think about it, before phylloxera, the turn of the 19th century, it was bush vines and there was no wires. Part of that was because steel was really expensive. Steel wire was prohibitively expensive. And when steel wire got cheaper, became possible because the technology, the railway technology, strangely enough, had allowed the development of steel and the creation of steel so that all of a sudden you could move forward with a different type of trellising system. So the type of trellising systems that are popular evolve with other technologies as well as the current technology or what you're trying to achieve. So it's not just what you're wanting to do with the vines now, it's also other things going on as well. I mean, one of the big ones I saw a while ago was when I came through Marlborough probably 25 years ago, there was an awful lot of wooden posts in the ground. Now, people go for steel. Why? Because tannalization, the poison used to keep the wood good, is considered bad.
Yep.
So that's a change that people are now aware of because of changes. Anyway, just slight change there, but just giving a little bit of context. So what's the dominant trellising system in Marlborough at the moment?
I will talk more about Sauvignon Blanc.
Yep, perfect.
So I just want to make some clarification here. So you have the trellis system and you have the training system. So your trellis is everything that supports your vine. So you have your posts, you have your wires, you have your clips sometimes. So all that infrastructure is the trellis. Now, your trellis system is usually adapted to the training system of your vine. So as I explained, your training system is the way you're allowing your vine to shape itself to the form you want to give to your vine. And for your vine to maintain that form, you need a trellis system to support it, to hold it, to keep it in place. Now, the trellis system that is mainly used on Sauvignon Blanc here in Marlborough is the VSP, so vertical shoot positioning trellis system, where you have 2 rows of wires parallel to each other that are running down a row, and you have your post about 7.2 meters and allowing you
roughly 7.2.
Yes, roughly. and they allow you to have 4 vines that have 1.8 meters spaced out within that bay. And so that's your trellis system. And what we are actually doing is we are not changing the trellis system per se. We are only changing or adapting the training system of the vine. So the trellis is still the same. Nothing is changing there, except we are thinking of bringing the fruiting wire slightly lower. Currently, the fruiting wire on Sauvignon Blanc sits anywhere between 0.9 to 1 meter from the ground. We are thinking of bringing it even lower to 0.6 or 0.5, depending on the site. So we are extending the height of the trellis, but we are not changing the whole trellis system per se. What we are actually intensively working on is the training system. So currently the training system used on Sauvignon Blanc is a head-trained cane prune system, which means your vine has a trunk, a head, and canes. So your canes are wrapped and your vine is cane pruned. That's why we call it cane prune system. So it is head trained. You are training your vine, you're allowing your vine to have a head and then canes. Now,
Is it single or double?
so here in Marlborough, some growers train their Sauvignon Blanc from 2 to 4 canes. So 2, 3, or 4 canes.
Okay.
Let me talk about the other training system. So you can also have a cordon train system where you have 2 cordons. So a cordon is a permanent wood structure of your vine.
It's like a branch.
Exactly. So it's like a branch. Actually, when you lay a cane, after 2 or 3 years, it becomes a cordon because it thickens.
Yep.
So you have the head train and the cordon train. So on the cordon train, you have 2 branches extending from the trunk of your vine. And on those trunks, you have spurs. Usually your cordon train system is spur prune. Now, Sauvignon Blanc is cane prune or head train because some data reveal that the base bud of your shoots either are unfruitful or are of lower fruitfulness. And so cane pruning Sauvignon Blanc was adopted just to allow you to get more nodes, more fruitful nodes.
And when you say the base bud, that's the first bud from the head.
Not from the head, but from the point it is attached. So from the origin.
Yeah.
So those base buds were believed to be unfruitful. And therefore, because they are unfruitful, you need to get your buds further away from those ones. So that's why usually a cane is laid horizontally to allow you to get more nodes, more fruitful nodes, or more fruitful buds.
Yep.
So that's the rationale behind that head-trained cane pruning system on Sauvignon Blanc. It is also used on other varieties, but I will mainly focus here on Sauvignon Blanc.
Just on that, some grape varieties get less fruitful the further away as well, don't they? Not Sauvignon Blanc or
I will get into that. That system, that cane prune system, has been adopted and used for decades here in Marlborough. The other thing that a training system entails is also the vine spacing. So the standard vine spacing here is 1.8 meters. And that gives you anywhere around 2,500 vines per hectare. And again, the rationale behind having so many vines per hectare is that will actually give you better yield. And the more vines you have, the more competition. And therefore, if you have a high level of competition, that will allow you to control vigor.
And Sauvignon Blanc is notoriously vigorous.
Exactly, is a vigorous variety. So those were the assumptions behind the adoption of that training system. Now, it wasn't a problem because regardless of how thick your canopy grew, you have the machinery to trim it. Diesel, man labor was cheap. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue. You could produce as much as you wanted. You could trim as many times as you wanted without any problem. You will still get some margins, big margins actually. Now, the dynamic has changed. Things have shifted because labor cost is rising, especially since COVID, and the cost of fuel and of diesel is also increasing.
But also carbon cost as well.
Now we have environmental issues. We have more consumers that are worried and concerned about the sustainability of the production of the wine that they are drinking. They're asking growers, they're asking wine companies to showcase sustainability. So all these factors are pushing growers into a dilemma. Should they maintain the current system or should they think outside the box? Now, there is a potential here because every change brings innovation. And that's where this new program, the Next Generation Viticulture program, sits in. Because Growers are complaining about the rising cost of management. They are also complaining about the price of the bottle of wine not increasing as the cost of producing it is increasing. So their margin are actually tightening up. And so they need to innovate somewhere. And one way of doing it is to reducing the management costs. That's one way. There are many other ways. You can also raise your production, but most growers don't want to do that because it means that you are exporting more. And at the moment, we have an oversupply of the market with wine. So you don't want to explore that option. You want mainly to focus on how can I reduce my cost. Now, interestingly enough, if you change or you adapt or you review your training system, you can actually cut your costs, your management costs. How? I said initially that you have so many vines per hectare because it's assumed that you will control your vigor. But actually you are doing the opposite. You are creating more vigor. And that vigor comes with more management costs. Trimming, plucking, topping. Which means if you control your vine vigor, actually you go away with those costs or you reduce them significantly. And this is based on a principle that has been proposed years ago by the godfather of viticulture. And
is that Richard?
Here in New Zealand, it's Richard Smart, but
Yeah.
Winkler in the US, that's
Okay.
him.
Okay.
So they enunciated some principles of grapevine physiology. And one of them is that the larger your grapevine is, the bigger your grapevine is in size, the moderate the vigor of each shoot it carries.
That's right. Well, but you have more shoots, but you have less vigor per shoot.
Correct.
That's the idea behind lyre or some of the big vine.
Yes, exactly. Some of the big vine theories, correct. So the divided canopies, Scott Henry, Y system, and so on. What we are trying to do here is to tap into those principles and bring them to life and see how they can benefit reducing the management cost. So what we are doing is, one, increase the vine size. We are testing 3 training systems. One where we maintain the same vine spacing as standard 1.8, but we increase the height of the vine and we increase the number of shoots per vine. So the space is the same, but the number of shoots that we are stacking within that space is increased.
Okay, and when each shoot has a bunch to it, so you're
Correct.
increasing the yield.
Correct. Beautiful. So that is a byproduct, I would say, of that. Now, the second training system is extending the size of the vine by 1.5 of the current size. So we are increasing the vine spacing to 2.7 meters. And then the final one is doubling that to 3.6. So we have 3 training systems that we are testing here. And the principle is still the same. We are extending the vine size to bring down individual shoot vigor. And the benefit of it is less vigor will bring down cost. Now, there are also other sustainability goals that we want to achieve because this program has 4 goals. One is reduce cost. Second is maintain quality. So grape and wine quality, we don't want to compromise on that. I indicated it in our previous podcast on UVC light. We put a lot of emphasis on quality. We want to maintain it. If possible, improve it. The third one is sustainability. So we want the system to be sustainable. We don't want to create a training system that will actually increase the environmental footprint of our production. So we want to keep that in check as well. Fourth one is yield variability. So we want to make sure that the variability season to season is not huge. So those are the 4 key goals or the 4 pillars of the next generation viticulture program. So we started with a pilot phase that took us 2 years, 2 seasons, where we tested a wide range of training system. Actually, when I say wide range, I mean 8. And the 8 training system was the standard training system that the grower apply here: cane prune, head train. The other one was 6 upright, so you have 2 horizontal cordons, 6 upright cordons within the same vine spacing of 1.8. The third one was 2 horizontal cordons, but 12 vertical cordons within the same vine spacing of 1.8. The fifth one was 2 bat spur, so you have 4 cordons with 2 bat spur on it. And then another one was 4 bat spur, and we call it long spur. So you have your 4 cordons, and on each you have 4 bat spur. The fifth one was horizontal. So you have 10 to 12 horizontal cordons on your vine. And the last one was on prune, to mimic minimal pruning. So you don't touch your vine, you just leave it as it is after harvest. So those were the training system during the pilot phase that we trialed. And the goal here was to try to find which one actually will help us save cost in terms of management. And we ran that trial for 2 seasons. And the training system that stood out was the 6 upright. The other ones had many limitations. So the unpruned one, for example, was the worst.
Yeah, imagine.
Because the vine grew a jungle and a whole lot of fruit. Actually, it yielded about 48 tons per hectare of fruit. But that fruit couldn't ripen to the target sugar level.
And some of it would be green and some would be overripe.
Correct. None of them was actually ripe, because we picked them around mid-May and they were still sitting at 16 bricks. Just to give you some perspective, growers usually harvest at the minimum of 19 or 20 bricks.
Yeah.
And the optimum is between 21.5 to 22.5 bricks. So those grapes couldn't ripen to that 19 bricks, which meant it wasn't a good system. And again, the other thing that we also noticed on that one was the vine tended to concentrate the growth at the top. The vine wanted to grow taller, and yet the trellis system had a limitation in terms of height. We couldn't extend the trellis any higher. And then the density of the canopy. The canopy was so dense that chemicals couldn't penetrate to protect those branches from disease. So, we chucked it away. Doesn't work. The 12 upright within the same vine spacing also proved to be not so good. It behaved almost the same as the unpruned.
When you say upright, are you talking about vertical shoots or canes?
Vertical canes. So they were vertical canes.
And each cane had a number of buds on it, producing fruit all the way up the cane.
Correct.
Well, that'd be a nightmare from a harvesting point of view as well.
Not from a mechanical harvesting point of view, because if you have a machine harvester, that's not even a deal. That's not even a problem. But if you are operating manually, that's when it can be a big problem, because you have your bunches spreading all over the canopy.
Yeah.
And you need to find people who can pick them. So it will take longer to pick.
Yep.
So the 12 vertical canes system was also not that promising because of the density of the canopy. It was giving us a very dense canopy.
So each bud on those 12 vertical canes, and there'll be a lot of buds per cane, is having its own shoot, which means they're all woven in. And
Yes. So those vines were quite dense, and also the fruit didn't ripen appropriately. The horizontal one was quite interesting. I would say it was the third worst of all of them.
So what was the best?
So the best was, in terms of the canopy structure and what we were intending to achieve, was a 6 upright, so the 6 vertical cordon.
Okay.
And this was because of the way those cordons were spaced out. So they were about 30 centimeters apart. And even though it yielded a lot, that training system gave us about 30 tons per hectare, and the fruit actually reached the 19-20 bricks target, which was quite impressive. And to me, it blew my mind to see the plasticity of Sauvignon Blanc, that, a vine could carry that much fruit and bring it to that level of ripeness. So to me, I felt like there is a potential here. There is a great potential here that we can tap into. So anyway, out of that pilot work, we isolated that training system as being one of the promising. We totally removed from the trial the unpruned and 6 upright. We still left some of the other ones just to monitor them for a few seasons to see how they were doing. But the 6 upright was our number one.
Okay.
And so what we did was, once we got the whole program approved and funded, we decided now to develop that training system by testing now the 2 other theories about the big vine, extending the size horizontally and vertically. So that's what we are currently doing with the NGV project. So we are testing 3 training systems and comparing them with the control, where we are extending the vine 1.5 to 2 times the normal, vine spacing that it occupies. And another component of the program is to start from young vines.
Yep.
So what we are doing at the moment is conversion. So we are converting mature vines to the new training system in the existing trellis.
Yep.
And what we will be doing next is to start from young vines and on a slightly modified trellis system, because the current trellis system, the canopy is between 0.9 meters to 1 meters from the grounds all the way to 1.82 meters. But now we'll be starting lower at 0.6.
But don't you have higher frost risk?
Potentially, but we need to test. We need to test these things. There is a lot of theory about lower canopy means more frost damage, but we need to test that to see.
And I suppose if you are producing more buds higher up anyway, so what if you lose 5%?
That's the other thing. So at the moment, they are looking very promising. The way the vine are behaving and the way we are learning as we go. The pilot phase taught us that we shouldn't build that framework in one go. We need to stage it. Why? Because if you leave 2 full vertical cordons or canes that would later become your cordons, the vine will respond by concentrating the growth at the top part of that cane and leaving the bottom part empty, which means you will be having an unproductive bottom part of your vine and all the fruit is at the top, from the middle part to the top part. So that's one learning we gathered from the pilot phase. And now during the full scales of the program, we are staging that development. So we do it in 2 stages. So we first build a cane that halfway through the canopy, and then we top up the second season. So we build it in 2 seasons.
What way are the shoots going? If you've got a vertical cordon with 6 vertical cordons, are the shoots, because the shoots want to go up, so are they bending up or are you trying to tie them horizontal?
The natural growth pattern is upright.
Yeah, that's why vertical shoot position, because that's what the plant wants to do.
Yes. One benefit of this new training system within the existing trellis is that we hook those cordons on 1 or 2 foliage wires, and the shoots naturally grow inside the trellis.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And because the shoots usually grow tendrils, so those tendrils will hook up to the wires and keep growing upward.
Yeah.
Which means you don't need to do any wire lifting because your wires are in place from the very beginning of the season. Whereas on your traditional head cane training system, you need to start with the bottom fruiting wire lifted as your shoots are growing, and that's labor. So at the moment, with the new training system, all your wires or your foliage wires are already in place, and as your shoots start growing, they just naturally grow inside the trellis, and the tendrils keep the shoots upright as they grow. So that is a saving in terms of the wire lifting work, so you don't need to lift your wires anymore, or very few. You might need to do at some site a little bit of talking to allow them to fit inside the trellis,
Yeah.
but that's really minimal.
Do you come along and you trim the top of the vine? Because if you do that, the shoots at the top will have much less leaf capacity than the shoots at the bottom.
Yes, so that's one concern we had when we were during the pilot phase. And interestingly enough, what we did was we split the canopy in two and sampled berry from the top, from the bottom, to see whether they are ripening at different rates.
Yeah.
And guess what? They are ripening at the same rate.
Okay.
Which means even though the top shoot might have fewer leaves, the vine is actually a unit.
Yeah.
So there is translocation and redistribution of carbohydrate happening on the whole system to ensure that everything is progressing in the same direction at the same rate.
And the canopy will be thicker at the top. Does that mean you'll get more shading at the top than at the bottom?
The shading will not come from the fact that you have more shoots at the top, because the number of shoots is evenly distributed along your vertical cordon.
Yeah.
The only issue that you may have, and that's one thing we are trying to address, is that the top shoot, because they don't have an additional wire to hold them straight, there is no wire past the top shoot, so they tend to flop. And so it is the flopping top shoots that actually create shade. But that shade will usually happen past veraison. It won't happen early in the season, which means your vine will still have plenty of light. And one thing that we are also noticing and that we encourage our growers to do is to delay or not to do any top trimming at all. Because what will happen is the shoot will terminate, it will self-terminate after veraison. So it will stop growing upward altogether.
Oh, okay.
But for that to happen, you should delay or maybe not top trim at all. And one pushback we are getting from growers, especially at some vigorous sites, very fertile sites, is that by January, you have already reached that top end of the canopy, and therefore they are forced to trim just to keep the vineyard tidy and allow other machinery like sprayers to be able to operate. But again, delaying it can improve your density. And delaying actually your trimming or suppressing it altogether means another labor cost that you are cutting.
Yeah.
You see? So what we are trialing here is big vine theory, but on a different framework, on an existing VSP trellis system. And we are getting some interesting results already, where the 6 upright has twice or even 2.5 more shoots than the commercial 4 cane or 2 canes. But guess what? The density of the canopy is the same. Why? Because you have less vigorous shoots.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So you have less vigorous shoots that are packed within the same space, and therefore you are managing that vigor by increasing the number of bud that you are stacking on a vine. And that's one thing we wanted to achieve by changing the training system. Now, the other benefit of this is at pruning. At pruning, because you only have thin canes, they are easy to cut. And you don't even need your loppers because you are not making big cuts on your cordons, on your 2-year-old wood. So you are only removing the 1-year-old wood that you are sparing. And so what we are believing or thinking is this will have a tremendous effect on your pruning costs and also on your treatment of those cuts at pruning. You might not need to spray at all to protect the wounds, because trunk disease is caused by those big cuts that are unprotected. When they are left unprotected, the fungi sit on it and then they infect your wood,
right.
your vine.
Yeah.
So you are not making big cuts at all. So you are preserving the integrity of the tissues of your vine. Those little cuts are not a big entry point for fungi. And therefore you are saving the time of painting, saving the time for cutting, pruning. You don't need to buy loppers anymore. And we are actually seeing some additional effects, cost saving on your establishment cost. So you might not need to put 2,000 vines per hectare. Maybe just half that will be enough.
And how are you finding the flavour of the wines when you've looked at the wines themselves?
So after 2 years of testing, the 6 upright, there are no differences between the 6 upright and the control, or they are very, very minute. The 9 upright or 1.5 footprint and twice the footprint currently are still in the interim phase of their development.
Yep.
And therefore the quality, the typicity of the wine is not comparable to the control. The concentration of flavors and aromas is still diluted somewhat, but we believe it's because your vine is trying to compensate the above ground part that increased larger relative to the root system. So the root system is trying to catch up with the top part, and that will take some time for the vine to reach that balance, that equilibrium. Yeah. So we are still in the early days to really, really conclude that the wine is still, of average quality. We need to give those vines a few seasons before we can.
Okay. And when does the program finish?
So it is a 7-year program that is co-funded by MPI, New Zealand Wine Growers, and 7 wine companies. So we have 4 cash contributors and 3 in-kind contributors. So the cash contributors are Whitehaven, Constellation, Treasury Estate, and Indevon.
Yep.
So those are the 4 cash contributors to the program. And then the in-kind contributors, actually the in-kind were there during the pilot phase. That's why we call them in-kind contributors, because they help us start this work, lay the foundation of it. So they are Clary Bay, Framingham, and Stanley Estate.
Cool.
So it's a 7-year program, and this season, so 2026, 2027 will be the second season, so the second year of the program.
The problem with this is obviously, if you change the spacings, you're going to have to grub up your vines or grub up every second vine or something like that. You're keeping the trellising, but that means there's a lot of changes.
So that's why we are testing the 3 training system. Remember, the 6 upright is the same vine spacing, so you are not changing anything. Now, if you feel that you are not getting the benefit out of it, so that's when you can decide, okay, let me test by removing every second vine and extending the size of my vine to see whether I will be increasing the benefit I will be reaping out of this new system. So there are options. There are options for growers. If you feel bad about sacrificing, every second vine in your block, you can still test the 6 upright and you will still reap the benefit. Because once you put your trellis in place, remember I said that with the 6 upright, you have twice the number of shoots of the control, but the density is still the same. So you're actually producing more fruit, not a very dense canopy, but on top of that, you are reducing your cost. Remember, I said you are reducing your wire lifting, you are reducing your pruning cost potentially, and you might be also reducing your top trimming. So, because remember I said when you delay your top trimming, you encourage that shoot termination. So you can still reap some benefit by maintaining the same vine spacing, maintaining your vines within the current setup, and getting some benefit out of it.
I think we'll wrap it up there, Paul. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, that ends our interview with Paul, and almost the show. We've just got to get the answer to this week's Patreon flashcard question. And the question was, Jane, what is the name of the cold north wind that blows through the Rhone Valley?
Well, I think it's the Mistral.
Mistral.
Is that right? Because I'm going hot and cold just thinking if I've got that wrong, I'm going to look really stupid.
Well, see, there's the thing. I wouldn't call it the Mistral. I'd call it the Mistral. So I think,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think you've got it right.
Well, my pronunciation's definitely better than yours, Chris. So it's the Mistral.
Certainly. Mistral, yeah, no, you got that right. There's 3 winds that are down there. The other big one that is the one that blows between the Pyrenees and the Central Massif. And there's a wind coming through Bordeaux known as the Tramontane. And then there's another wet wind coming up from the south that gives them lots of floods if it comes up.
I remember when we were in Bandel, they was talking about the Mistral, weren't they?
Yeah, they get hit by both winds. Yeah, definitely the Mistral is probably the most problematic.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Chris, and thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And a big thank you to our patrons for your continued support. And if you'd like to join our community, head over to patreon.com/UK Wine Show.
Till next week, cheers and good drinking.
The UK Wine Show is a weekly podcast brought to you by 3050, the wine tasting company. The show is produced by Chris Scott and the news is read by Jane Scott. To listen to other shows, visit ukwineshow.co.uk. Thank you for listening.